Today, we are going to fix God of War native HD crap. Okay? This game looks so bad on HDR, man, that I was going to return this LGC1 because of this game. I opened this game on HDR and I was like, man. And this was this was the first game, I think, I opened on HDR. And I was like, man, if this is how HDR is supposed to look like, this is trash, okay? It's an absolute garbage. Okay, it's just so bad. And I was like, man, my $25 plasma TV on SDR looks better than this. If this is how HDR is supposed to look like, if this is like a scam or something, you know, it's terrible. Absolutely terrible. You cannot expect anyone to buy any TV or any monitor, open God of War and be like, wow, this HDR is amazing. No way. It looks so bad on the PC. And I think that the consoles, I'm talking about the first God of War. I think the consoles, they also look very, very bad on HDR. But here, with Reshade, we can fix it. Okay, we can fix it with Reshade, and I'm gonna show you how to do that. So basically, first the in-game settings. What I'm using in-game is this brightness 38. So I reduce the brightness to 38, and I reduce the contrast to 37. And the reason is, by reducing the contrast, you're basically, you see here the HDR signal. By reducing the contrast, you are doing this. So you get more visibility near black, and you get less of a messed up HDR because you're doing this. So basically what is high, it goes down a little bit, and what is low, it goes up a little bit. So you get better visibility, and that fixes the mid-tones, basically. So that's why I have to lower the contrast in-game. So because I am fixing the overall picture with the in-game settings, the only thing that I need to do is I have to fix this 10,000 nits problem that we have. Okay, so I am doing tone mapping with Reshade. You can see here before, you see the signal here, after. Let me lower the ISO of the camera so you can see the clipping difference here. Okay. Okay, so you see now with the ISO low, now everything looks dark, but focus on the highlights. See, before, you see 10,000 nits. You see here, this detail is disappearing. Everything looks blown out and horrible. I am just on an interior place, but if you go to the outside, it's a mess. Okay, I'll show you an example on the outside too. You see here before, after. Big difference. Look at the details here. Before, after. And also here on the staircase. Before, after. Before, after. Before, after. Look at this. Before, after. There's a big difference. So now, what I'm doing here is very simple. I'm using Reshade with this new Lilium HDR shaders that we have, and I explain how to download this step by step, link in the description of the video. So you see a guide of how to download Reshade, how to download these new shaders, and to get this working. But it's very simple. We just have to use this Lilium tone mapping. It's called Lilium tone mapping, and the settings that I'm using here is BT 2390. Let me increase the ISO again. Okay, so you see here the settings. BT 2390 is what I am using. So you have tone mapping methods. You have the default BT 2446, BT 2390, and dice. I will explain you a little bit the differences and the options, these options that we have on the shader. But I'm using BT2390. I am using a static, and then all you have to do is select here on max CLL for static tone mapping 10,000. So this is the max CLL of the game. It's 10,000 nits. And then all you have to do here on the target peak luminance is to select the maximum peak brightness of your display, okay, to use HGIG. Or if your display is tone mapping, what you have to do is select the desirable output for your display. So let's say your display is tone mapping and you need 1500 nits. You would just type in 1500. It depends on your display. So here on my LG C1 OLED, I want to use HGIG and I need 800. I need max CLL 800. So this is tone mapping from 10,000 nits to 800. So it's reducing what the game is trying to output, so it looks okay. It looks good on my display. That's one thing I'm doing. And then we have the settings for this BT2390. So depending on the tone mapping method that you use here, you have a specific settings for each tone mapping method. So the settings for BT2390, which is what I'm using here, are these settings. Processing mode, which I changed to RGB because it looks better. The colors look more saturated. It looks better. I am still exploring this Y RGB because it looks even more colorful, but I'm not sure that is more correct. But I'm going between these two, between this Y RGB and RGB. So, but for now, I will go with RGB because I just don't even know what this Y RGB is. So yeah, I recommend RGB. And then we have this target black point. We have this knee factor and knee minus. So I change, of course, we keep the target black point at 0. And then I change this knee factor from the default 1.5. I lowered that to 1.2. Okay. And then I change this knee minus from the default 0.5 to 0.9. So now why I changed those values? A lot of testing. I didn't even know. I don't even know what this is. Knee factor and knee minus. I have no idea what that is. What I did was basically just look at the highlights and start going up and down until I get, okay, this is the point where I get the highest brightness and I get no clipping, okay? And by using these settings, basically the mid-tones of the game don't change. So you see here, when I go on and off, the mid-tones of the game. So look at the skin of Kratos. It doesn't change at all. See, the mid-tones don't change. The only thing that's changing is the peak brightness here for the skin. But if you look at this, it's not changing at all. See, before, after, before, after. It's not changing. So what I'm doing is this. I'll show you. It's not working out. Okay, sometimes you know how PCs are. So what I'm doing is this: before, after, before, after. You see? Before, after. You see, there's no changes on the mid-tones at all. So I am not affecting the visibility of the game. So I am fixing the contrast of the game with the in-game settings. I am fixing the peak brightness with this. So I can say that, I can confidently say that, well, I cannot say this is the creator's intent because I needed to change the in-game settings. But you get the idea. I'm not changing the image too much. I'm just trying to fix the problem that we have, basically. That's it. So this game doesn't have the black level race. You can see it here with this HDR analysis tool. The game doesn't have the black level race. There are some places where you see this graph is elevated, but it depends. It depends on what you're looking at. If you are on a very dark place that has perfect blacks, then you will see this graph completely starting from 0. So when you see this graph higher, that doesn't mean that the game has black level rays. So what it means is that right here on this scene, we don't have 0 perfect blacks. Let's say you have a floor. The floor is a texture that's gray, and it has no black, it has no contrast, it's just a flat gray texture. You're going to see this graph starting from high, okay? But if, let's say, if they actually add some details to that floor, and those details, some of those details are perfectly black, then you will see that starting from 0. But that's not the case sometimes. And sometimes I believe that's why it doesn't look that great. Some of the games, and on this game that happens too, because you don't have infinite contrast. So let's say you have a scene where everything is starting from 1 nit and beyond, and you don't have 0 black, you don't have perfect blacks anywhere. That scene doesn't have infinite contrast. Okay, so we have an OLED, we want to enjoy that infinite contrast. There are some scenes that don't have it. You need 0, you need that 0 black, you need 0 nits to really get that infinite contrast. And I don't think they take advantage of that all the time, and it is a shame. Of course, we can just come here and lower fine-tune dark areas -5. You can do that. I was trying that yesterday, and it looks good. But there are some scenes, like for example, at the beginning of the game, when you are inside the house, it looks very dark. Well, actually, I am using fine-tune dark areas -5 now. I was trying it yesterday, but I would say the settings are with fine-tune dark areas at 0. But I was trying -5, and it was actually looking very good. I like it. So we're going to reduce that a little bit when we use fine-tune dark areas -5. But, you know, give it a try. See which one you like the best. We want to be as close to 0 if we can, because that's gonna give us a better picture quality, but we don't want to crush details if it is not necessary. So yeah, let me show you a different scene on the game. I'm gonna pause the video and load a different place so I'll show you that. Okay, let's take a look at this scene here. Before, after. Let me change the. So I lower the ISO of the camera so you can see these details here. Before, after. Take a look at this behind the smoke here. Before, you see? After. Before, after. So behind the smoke, you cannot see very well before the fix. Before, after. You see it here too. Before, after. So let's go to the outside. Let's take a look at this inside. Let me raise the black level. Let me raise the camera settings so you can see here. You see what I was saying? Here, for example, we have this floor that is very dark. It is very dark, but it doesn't have a great contrast, and it should because here the cracks, for example, this cracks here on the floor, the in between the different squares, you know what I'm saying? It should be perfect black. We shouldn't be able to see anything there. And if they give you perfect black there, then you will see black here. But you don't have perfect black there. Everything looks gray. So as a consequence, when you're trying to increase the visibility more, it looks bad. It doesn't look great. But with these settings, I think it looks the best. I tried all the settings I could basically, and this looks the best. So also, let's take a look at this before and after here too. Lower the ISO, so take a look at these details here. Before, it looks blown out. After, see? Before, after. And this is not even 10,000 nits. Yeah, it is peaking, but just a little bit after. Before, after. So let's go to the outside. You see how that looks. You see here the fire looks good. The colors look good on the fire. It looks okay. Let's take a look at this outside. Take a look at this thing here. Before, see, it looks blown out. After. You see how the details come? These details here on the clouds. Before, after. See? Blown out. And it also looks like white. It looks like washed out here. After. See, this becomes orange. See, now it is like white. When I fix it, it becomes orange. This is like what they were trying to show there, because this is like a mess. And this is after I changed the game settings. So just with the default game settings, this looks horrendous. After. Before. After. Actually, let me change the in-game settings so you see how that looks. Oh, I messed it up. I think I load a different part of the game. Oh yeah, I just load the same. Let me change the in-game settings so you see how that looks by default, because I remember this part of the game. This was so frustrated. This was the part where I was actually gonna return the TV, man. It's just terrible. Let's take a look at this. So I'm gonna change the settings to the default. Contrast 50, brightness 50, and I'm gonna turn off the fix. Look at this. This is terrible. Before, after. It still works better with the tone mapping. You see the details coming. Before, after. You see the details coming. But the problem is the contrast of the image is not good because it looks too dark. So let me increase the ISO. I'm gonna increase it even beyond. So I was showing you the ISO in 200. I increased it now to 320. And take a look at the interior. It's too dark. It's too dark. I cannot see because the lights are on. I cannot see anything here. I cannot see the floor at all. Of course, you should play on a dark room, but this is too dark, man. It is too dark. And I cannot see it. I cannot see very well here. Especially when you have these bright objects. Yeah, and if you unleash the brightness, it looks even worse. So yeah, when I look at this thing, see? It's ugly. And you cannot fix it, even if you fix the, even if you fix the tone mapping, this still looks ugly. I don't like it. But there's no way around it. You're gonna get those ugly reflections. You see, this looks so messed up, man. So messed up. Let me lower the ISO, show you that. Okay. This reflection here just looks so ugly, man. Still looks ugly. But for the most part, the game looks good after the fix. So yeah, let me know your thoughts and opinions. If you have any questions, I think this is amazing. Having the option to do this tone mapping now is absolutely amazing. See, now this looks so messed up, man. Very, very, very bad. So yeah, let me know your thoughts and opinions. If you have any questions, I'm still learning about this stuff. I still need to figure things out, but I think I'm getting a good result here. I didn't want to use the curved levels on this one, this PROD03 curved levels, because I am fixing I tried, but I am fixing the contrast of the game with the in-game settings, and it works better. Because when I try to fix the visibility of the game near black and all that with this PROD80, then I am affecting the highlights, and because the highlights on this game are so messed up, I don't even want to touch them. When I lower the white point here For example, this white point offset, I need to lower that to increase the visibility of the midtones. When I do that, the colors get desaturated because I have to lower it too much. And yeah, I just couldn't get a better result with this PROD80. So yeah, I fix it with the in-game settings and by doing the tone mapping. Let me know if you give it a try, if you like it. But if you're playing a different game, just know that this is now an option. You can do tone mapping using this Lilium tone mapping shader, and this is awesome because we have a lot of games that are 10,000 nits. We have the Uncharted game, so I'm gonna cover Uncharted, The Last of Us, and The Lost Legacy. They are the same thing, same engine, they look the same, messed up, 10,000 nits, garbage. But they don't look as bad as God of War. They look okay actually. It's just dull. It just look dull, and they're clipping because of 10,000 nits. But it's okay. It's just not as spectacular, but it looks okay. So yeah, let me know if you give it a try. Let me know your thoughts and opinions, and if you have any questions.